I'm Mirella Masalo from the European University College Association, a network of halls of residence for students that focused on soft skill learning and assessment. So the two major purposes of assessment are improvement and accountability. Improvement refers to the formative aspect of assessment and evaluation. Results from this formative assessment can be used to improve or reshape courses, programs, or in general education at large. Just as a reminder from the material you've reviewed, formative assessment is used to measure progress on how the student is learning during your class. Formative assessments act like milestones to check progress. Accountability, on the other hand, refers to the summative or effectiveness dimension of assessment. As you've seen this week, summative assessment aims to measure how much or what the student is learning. It shows what can be considered the bottom line, what the student has learned at the end of the course, their long-term retention. Findings from summative assessment are typically used to make a decision about the contributions of a program or other important decisions about funding, placement, and restructuring. Assessment plans refer to the formative aspects of an assessment project. It is during the planning process that objectives are formed and reformed, questions are written and revised, and outcomes are considered. Some refer to this as the strategic planning cycle, as it is often the most time-consuming part of the entire assessment activities. Assessment requires thus a considerate investment of time and should involve a serious period of deliberation, reflection, and thinking. For example, first, think about the purpose of your learning activity and what you hope to learn or discovered. Keep in mind that learning outcomes require precisions or levels that allow you to measure if students have expanding learning in this area, like in rubrics, for example. This is especially important for soft skills assessment. Then, think about the type of data you need to satisfy your purpose. The assessment process, unlike the plan, speaks directly to the process of such research. It involves the procedures, the tools, and the tasks involved in conducting this assessment designed to measure the internal learning outcomes. This also includes, of course, the administrative or organizational aspects of the assessment work. A key element in student learning is to provide frequent formal but also informal opportunities for feedback, focused on understanding, not memorization, of course, to encourage meaningful learning. And we have seen increasingly that teachers are using formative assessments that provide students with opportunities to improve the quality of their thinking and their understanding. The goal is for students to gain metacognitive abilities to self-assess, to reflect, and to rethink for better understanding. As you have seen in some of the teacher practices available, there are many ways you can integrate students' feedback and peer assessment into the assessment process as well. For example, in the Politecnico di Milano, teachers integrated feedback exchange into their assessment plan and asked students to reflect on the entire group performance for team projects. Students filled individually a form that contained a list of statements linked to behaviors and situations that may occur during a teamwork activity. For each of them, students had to indicate their level of agreement. Timing is also key. Real-time feedback can be a powerful learning and assessment tool. The teacher in AUN applied design thinking in class and used the peer assessment strategy. Students providing feedback to their teammates on the effectiveness of their communication skills, on the quality, originality of the project and of the presentation. Thus, students had this feedback right after finishing an activity or during the project itself. As you have seen, The teacher also appreciates receiving information on how students' engagement and learning in the course in order to adapt the intended learning outcomes. Another common advice you've seen from teachers relates to transparency. Instructors should explain clearly to students at the beginning of the course what are the criteria and the standards that will be used to assess students' work. Teachers need to ask and reply for themselves when planning, and then share their answers with the students at the beginning of the course the following questions. What are the characteristics of high quality work or performance in this area? For other question can be, on each of the criteria chosen, how good the work has to be so it qualifies as quite good or exceptionally good, for example. The answer to this question clarifies to students the teacher's standards. You can go also a step further. Some teachers use self-assessment also at the beginning, not only at the end of the course. As seen in the AUN design thinking methodology, students were asked to evaluate themselves in terms of both skills developed, effort put into the class, and outcomes obtained. This criteria will create opportunities for students to engage more thoughtfully in self and peer assessment. Later in life, students will need to assess their own performance, but also their peers' or colleagues' performance. So it is important for them to learn how to do that while in university as well. You may want the class to do this self or peer assessment initially in groups and later on individually. Having clear standards against which students can compare and contrast themselves will help them to reflect on their own learning and their peers' learning as well. A practical exercise that can help you guide your thinking. Select one of your main learning goals. Identify at least 2 criteria that would distinguish exceptional achievement from poor performance. Then write 2 or 3 levels of standards for each of these criteria. It can work. As a recap, key takeaways are: define your internal learning outcomes, decide on the criteria and indicators that you will use, plan the assessment tasks, review the testing tools available, collect feedback. Assessment does not need to be a lonely endeavor, especially since soft skill assessment is still gaining a lot of ground. And now I would say it's up to you. You can head to the discussion board and engage with colleagues. For example, some burning questions can be: what performances are you applying your rubrics to? How can you sequence your learning outcomes so you can plan and evaluate progress? How do you review or revise your educational plan based on assessment data and feedback? As you progress in this MOOC, we wish you a really great learning experience. Thank you.